This is Inside Outlands. I am your host, Nat Ryle, and joining me today is Kvothe, leader of the Amyr Mercantile Guild. How's it going, man?
Very well, Nat Ryle. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, I hit you up because we haven't covered crafting or the economy. I did a little bit in the episode with Storme, the number one gold earner on the Shard, and he had a couple of pretty nice insights back then for the Shard launch, but this is kind of your guild's primary focus, and you guys do a lot for the community. You have a little role-playing flair going on. You have community events. I think you have a small PVM arm. You guys are just doing a whole lot on the Shard, so I want to kind of get you on here to tell us what Amyr is all about and what you guys are up to, and maybe we could dive into the economy of UO.
I'm honored. These are all great subjects, and I'm a big fan of your show. So I think I've heard every episode and enjoying them very much.
Yeah, I've gotten a couple questions from you and stuff. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for making time to come on. What's your UO background? Where'd you start?
I started on Chesapeake Shard around the time that UO Renaissance released. So I was a noob in those days, and the only way I knew how to make gold was to scam other players. It seemed like the easiest thing to do rather than learn the game, just do some social engineering and take other people's gold. So I did that and got a house and kind of kept noobing along. And then eventually a character named Tralaladi-Da took me over from Chesapeake to Lake Austin for their launch. And that's actually where I ended up meeting Akasha. His guild, AB, the Akashic Brotherhood, was a big champ spawn guild there. So I hung out there, learned the ropes a little bit, on to Siege Perilous to kill some people as a role-playing vampire, and then free shards from then until now. And now Outlands is the best UO I've ever seen before.
Yeah, so role-playing vampire, you just breezed right over that. That actually sounds... we don't have that here yet, I don't think. We have aliens, orcs. What else do we have? We don't have that yet, I don't think. Oh, we have
vampires are great. You can be maybe you'll dry loot the person, maybe you'll resurrect them afterwards, right? It just sort of depends on how you want to play it. It's quite dark, and you can accept blood moss and other blood-related items as tribute if you want to let someone live instead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. What brought you to Outlands? You said best you've seen UO in years, but what kind of drew you to the Shard?
In between other free shards where I'd lose interest or the player base would die down, every few months or so, I'd just poke around on the internet and see what's going on. So I tracked when Relpor was coming and going, and Outlands I caught at some point during beta, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. The map was more beautiful than Ultima Online ever was. The mechanics were better. The interfaces were better. And it seemed like it already had so much buzz during beta that it was sure to be one of the biggest launches of a free shard. And I have not been disappointed. I've had extremely high expectations, and they are always exceeded by Owen and Luthien and their amazing team.
Yeah, they're primed to get a second leg. I think they're revamping all the guild system and PvP systems and new dungeons. It's we're going places in it, and it's just great to see that this far into the project, there's just more to come, more to play, more to experience, and that we haven't seen and done anything yet, and that they're really dedicated to the project, which is great as a player because I've been in communities again before where that's not the case, and it's very, very refreshing.
I just hope they don't burn themselves out. It seems like they're having a lot of fun and it's energizing them, but it's quite well balanced. So even at its current state, I could see this game being enjoyed for years and years. And who knows what it's going to be like years from now if they keep developing at this pace.
Yeah, I don't want them to burn out either. There are only a few guys. I have to be really careful when I'm setting up things in Beard Brothers to make sure that any new policy or procedure or thing we do comes with the least amount of admin work as possible. Otherwise, even though we have a good team, they'll just burn out. And then who's going to run that new system or new feature we had planned? And people will end up leaving. So that's a problem really with any MMO. It's not unique to to Ultima Online. I think we saw a huge influx of players leave, and then a huge influx of players come back. And then I think this guild patch we're getting will draw a lot of the PvPers back as well.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. And it sounds like a good idea what you're doing on the Beer Brothers side of always erring on the side of less work for everyone by default. Because, yeah, if there's something, even if it's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work, as soon as the fun dries up, it blows up.
I mentioned work because that's all crafting looks like to me, is complete insanity.
Yeah. Me too, really. I barely do any crafting myself, but people love it. And it's a great community. It's some of the most laid back players you'll find.
Yeah, we've got a guy, Netsackler Bodegas, and he's just awesome. You talk to him, it's always a treat. He's always got something great to say. Just really laid back and cool, and really, really dedicated. I think it takes a unique player to approach that side of the game. It comes with the most grind. I know there's taming, but taming can be done faster, it seems like. The grind to get a GM crafter is really high, and then the level of dedication you have to get it to 120 is even crazier. Are you pulling a certain kind of player? Are you seeing a wide spectrum of players that do it, or how do you? Are just people that just did this in the past that are just drawn to that play style?
We've got everything from people who have this as their only play style and they play a lot. So they're legendary in all of the crafts. They're managing major vendor operations and all kinds of business deals, renting out shop space to other players. And then we've got other people who just do, they've got forensic evaluation and they want someone to sell the leather to. So really, the entire spectrum of anybody who's doing anything related to harvesting, crafting, professional work, where we truly are a guild, a trade guild, to facilitate all this kind of thing for economic efficiency.
Yes, you guys aren't super selective where you only want the guys that have the huge crafting empire. You're a little more open to someone just dipping their toes in it, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we need those suppliers and we need those crafters. Sometimes someone just needs a room book crafted, and having that Grandmaster Crafter online is great. Or someone just needs some ingots for tinkering, and we've got somebody who's a miner who's working on a chef or something like that. So it's very, very helpful. People are very valued at all levels of it. And the people running the big operations naturally end up sort of rising up the chain within the organization, and they become the movers and the shakers. So who can say what these guys are up to these days?
Yeah, let's get into it. So what is Amyr? Why'd you set it up? What was your kind of vision when you formed the guild? Yeah, like what's the origin story, I guess?
Well, to properly start at the beginning, I guess I should say that Amyr is a meme created by an author, Patrick Rothfuss, in his book The Name of the Wind. And it's a great book, and people should buy it and read it. And my name, Kvothe, is also stolen from that story. So Patrick Rothfuss created the Amyr meme. I'm going to pronounce it slightly differently and call it Amyr, and refer to the guild that we've got here on Outlands, which is really kind of a permutation of that original meme. We're just the UO implementation of the Amyr. So the Amyr is it's some kind of society, and where the boundaries of it are exactly aren't clear. But on Outlands, as far as I know, Amyr are known to be crafters and merchants, harvesters, all kinds of professionals like lockpicks and cartographers, and people who enjoy the game most through trade. So that's, in a nutshell, what we are as a guild.
Yeah, I love Patrick Rothfuss. Those are some great books, and I don't know if we'll ever get a third book, but it's right up there with Game of Thrones, with people waiting for the next chapter. And your name is definitely.
We don't want it to go that way.
I have a guildmate who I think had the same name, and he wanted me to ask you that he's got dibs on it, and it's not cool that you stole his name. It's like, you both stole it from a book. Like, you don't get dibs on a name from a book.
I've got all kinds of dibs. I've got dibs going back into beta with all kinds of weird PrevCoin cryptocurrencies floating around. So I don't know. We can compare dibs if he wants.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a little bit of a role-playing flair to it. You want to go into that first, or?
Yeah, and it's really brought out by the players. So we kind of hint as to what the role play could be and just let people do what they want to do. So I've only experienced a small portion of it myself, but going back to Rothfuss and his 2 books, and if those are the only 2 we ever get from him, I'll be grateful for those. In those books, minor spoiler, it's not really clear if the Amyr exist or not. Maybe they used to exist a long time ago, but they did some terrible things, and everybody trusted them anyway. They were kind of above the law, so they were known for having choked pregnant women in the street and burned down churches and all kinds of terrible things, supposedly for the greater good. And we have a lot of that too. We appear to just be a brand, basically. And, when people see the Amyr brand, they know that this is probably mastercrafted. It's going to be in stock. This is going to be a complete shopping experience. That's the brand. But on the role-playing side, there's also these people who may or may not think they're in a secret society.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and you just have players that either engage with that or don't. I guess I would equate this to maybe what Imperium Purvelia was like at the start. I think they're now more heavy, strict RP, but they were a little more light RP for the first 5 months or so.
Yep, we are extremely light. I remember when they launched, they were a little more relaxed, and they've gone full force, which is great. We're on the very light end of the spectrum, so people can not do it at all, and it fits right in.
That's fine. It gives your little story. It's maybe that's the same as giving your character a backstory. Even though if you just played the game normally, you spent the time to write a backstory, and then maybe occasionally you'll dip in with it, something like that.
Yeah, there's a little bit as far as backstories go. We have people who are greeting each other with code phrases in game, and if they get a certain response, then they have an idea of what that person might be up to. And maybe it's role playing, or maybe they're trying to create a cartel and control prices on something. Who knows what these guys are doing? It all kind of blends, and it's not really clear what's role play and what isn't. I got overthrown at one point. I wasn't clear to me whether that was real or not.
Did they use the mechanics in the guild system?
Yeah, they voted somebody else in as guildmaster and killed me and kicked me out of the guild. So I could only play along with that, right? What am I gonna complain? That's kind of cool.
That's cool. So, are you the current leader, or is someone else the current leader?
No, they added me back in a couple of weeks later. I was just wandering around as a ghost for a couple of weeks wondering, and they resurrected me, and I'm playing it off as a little bit of amnesia because I'm not quite sure where it's going. And it was the end of that Road to Terran event. Modego Wolfclaw had killed this guy Apostolos on the roof of the building, who people said was leaking guild information outside of the guild. So it was like, well, she wants to eat somebody with her eagles anyway, so let that happen. And things were moving along nicely. And then one of our officers, Blacksmith Andre, who runs a shop and rents vendors from me at the Terran Moongate house, killed me with his warhammer when I was about to pass out loot to everybody. And then he started looting me, and I never got that stuff back. And anyway, he and Nagaba and Remington are in charge of the guild. They are the Cyrdae, who are supposedly above the law, and anything they do must be for the greater good by definition. So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, I've had a couple interactions with Nagaba. He's really nice. That
female, actually.
Oh, okay.
She often points out that she's a grandmother, in fact.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
That makes even more sense then with I guess her persona that she's putting out there. It's cool stuff.
She's an orc crafter. Yeah, I've learned a little bit of the language from her.
Oh, does she talk orc in game too, or?
A little bit. I might say Grebus instead of Hail, something like that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, so you mentioned the caravan. I think you've done 2 of those, right? Or is there more?
There's only one that I was personally involved in. I think there's another one eventually going to be set for another location, maybe Horseshoe Bay. But yeah, the Road to Terran was the major one that we did. And it unfortunately resulted in genocide. But, we knew it was going to be bloody one way or the other, so that's just as good.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people definitely interested in that. Well, any community event is going to get interest in Outlands. It's a pretty big player base. But what was the turnout like, do you think?
I never ran an estimate. It had to be 100 at least. Yeah, I saw a lot of guilds that I don't typically see out there, or at least not out in one place. So I think we had a little bit of representation from a huge cross section.
Yeah, I think the orcs were there. A couple of my people from my guild were there. And just, I guess, what was the event? It was the Road to Terrence. You guys started in one location, took a caravan across. Did you have like loot on your bodies? Were there protection rackets or?
So the main idea of this thing is to get free advertising for the shop at Terran Moongate, because I own that house. Actually, the whole reason for the guild might be just to have people opening that door and keeping the house refreshed in case I'm not playing at some point. But we were going to move from Terran Stables, get our pack horses, to Terran Bank in order to load up our pack horses and ourselves with all of our finest wares and gold and jewels and magic items, aspect stuff, whatever. And then make our way down the road from the town of Terran to the shop itself. And if we made it alive, we'd hand out the rewards to whoever protected us. If we got killed or our pack horses got killed, that loot would be lost to the thieves and the murderers. And that is, in a nutshell, what the plan was, and that's how it played out. It just happened really fast, and the Reds got slaughtered.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's a cool idea. It's definitely an awesome shop. I didn't really know about it until a couple weeks ago, but I'm glad I found it. I wasn't really going to Terran for my shopping, but I mean, it's right at a Moongate, so it's definitely a prime location because you just hop Moongates, and then the shop right there is usually the first one you go look at. But you guys,
that's right, Rael. And we have a rune book under the house sign with runes to other Amyr locations.
Yes, I found that today. That's awesome. Because I wanted like more leather or a different leather, and it wasn't at that particular shop. And then there was a rune book, and I just went to the next one and shopped there. Yeah, it was cool.
Beautiful.
It's a good idea.
I'll pay you the other half after this thing, Sheltergate.
Yeah. Do you have like a bot running that keeps that stock with recall scrolls? You just load it up daily, or?
People go there to pray. The role playing people go there, and they put recall runes in it as if it's some kind of altar, and they'll say some weird stuff there and weird out nearby shoppers.
That's cool.
So sometimes it's out, and that just means that our religion is failing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this definitely sounds more than light role playing. Sounds like you got some dedicated role players.
It's the theme. The theme sounds serious, but how serious can you be in UO?
Yeah. So you guys have Terran. You have some in Cambria. You have a little off from the Outpost Moongate. You gotta go east just a little bit, but that's a good shop too.
Or west of the town itself. Yeah, is the house is right there. Andaria Moongate. Yeah, they're all over the place. There's ones I see all the time that I didn't know existed.
Do you set up how those shop has to look? Because there's kind of a uniformity when you go across them, at least naming wise. So I guess it's your Amyr branding. So is that like a policy in the guild?
Yeah, we do. That's one of the few things that we are a little bit strict about, because we want the brand to at least be clear. We'd like the vendors to be stocked all the time and, everybody's favorite shops, but it's hard to make people be great at playing the game. But you can make them put on certain color clothes, red and charcoal clothes, I think it is, and make sure that the name has that word Amyr in it so that people know that that's our brand. Because we're competing with Walmart and other very established vendors whose brands have been known for a long time.
Yeah, well, I think it's helped. I actually thought it was just one player at first, and then then I learned more. And then I learned it was a guild, and then a couple of different people, and different shops, and then I learned the role playing, and it just. But the brand itself definitely establishes it and makes it pretty clear, and then there's it's a good place to stop because it's stocked up
But that also means our prices are high, so. Oh, let me just kill this entire plug right now by telling people that we have pretty high prices, but it works well. At least if you need a shield or something, we'll probably have one because they weren't all 99 gold a piece and they sold out in the first hour.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how UO is. Like you can, or at least Outlands, you can browse, sell, and buy and do shelter trades, and that'll get you places. You can just hop Moongates, or you can really like go further in. You can form relationships with crafters and then pester them when you need gear and stockpiles. And, I don't have any UO experience besides Outlands, really. So this is pretty new to me as far as how it works, having to go to a player or go to a player's shop and do your shopping like that, and not just have an auction house.
Right.
Yeah, it gets you out in the world, gets you talking to players. It can make it really hard, though, to tell, what's the price of this today? How much has it changed? It can be frustrating because I don't know if I'm overpaying, underpaying. And then, I guess your shops, you're trying to set the standard, to set the price at what you want to sell it at, right?
No, actually, we have currently no price guide or price reference at all. People have talked about creating some kind of reference just so that people didn't have to always do the same research for themselves over and over again. So I think there are some subgroups that are sharing some references with each other, but it's very dependent on the location of your shop and what you're selling and so on. So not every blacksmith is the same. Not every tinker is the same. And we let people charge whatever they want to charge. We especially encourage people to increase their prices. We've seen it as a sort of global failure of the market to have prices be too low. So we encourage people to increase their prices. Yeah.
What's the one, like alchemy? You can find a keg for 2,200 gold sometimes, and that's barely above the cost of the regs to make the keg. So I'm not even sure why they're still in business. Why were they?
Exactly. Yeah, we had a hard time finding alchemists to join our shop, so we wanted to have a well-rounded shop that covered every craft. We couldn't find alchemists, even if we charged them no rent when we should be charging 10,000 gold a week or whatever. We could not find alchemists. And I just said, well, just set it up and just set the prices so ridiculously high that you won't have to worry about restocking it. And those kegs are selling, but at a reasonable rate, and they're profitable. So unfortunately, it's just not a high-volume craft these days, but you can still do it. Just don't charge those absurdly low prices.
Yeah, don't underestimate ease of shopping. And a player like me who is limited in time, I need my recall scrolls. Well, I know a recall scroll is supposed to cost, I don't know what, like 3 or 4 gold or a scroll, but I pay, I think 20 gold a scroll because there's one right by my house, and it's always stocked.
That's what I charge too. Yeah, 20.
So,
that's good.
I just go grab it. Because otherwise, I go shop around and find, this guy's depleted, and then I have to go hit up the crafter. Or I could just stop by this one shop that always has it, and I can get my 50 recall scrolls to fill my book up. And
your time is valuable. You're saving yourself time. You can farm thousands of gold easily if you want to, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's probably a little more the odd economy, and it's not as pronounced as an Eve where you have. Areas and pricing by areas, because that game's a little bigger and sprawling and harder to get across it.
Okay.
But there are definitely price differences across the different locations, whether at Prevelia. Prevelia is usually a little higher. And then Cambria has a lot of crafters in it seems like. And then Terran, it's like you and another house, I think. And then the other one, Outpost, has like 4 or 5 houses. Outpost actually has quite a bit of crafting vendors.
Yeah, there are some shopping centers popping up, and the brands will stand out. I hope to see more brands entering in those places because it's a time saver for players not to have to click through empty pouch within an empty bag, only to find that there's nothing in there. People leave their vendors set up this way, and we encourage them not to.
Yeah, let's just talk a little bit about the mechanics. How a vendor contract works, how you keep it stocked, how they have a week contract, a month contract, those kind of rules, I guess, or way the game works.
Sure. So there's custom system here for all of that. This is not something that a UO vet would know off the top of their head. You have to buy a rental contract deed from a non-player character in town, maybe the provisioner or the banker or something. And then you bring that and you lock it down in the house that you own and double click it. And now you're in an interface where you can set up who is this open to? Friends of the house, co-owners, the public? And what is the period of rent? Is it every week rent is charged and the contract is renewed? Every 2 weeks, 4 weeks? And you can set these kind of parameters and then offer it to someone. And then they double click the same deed that's locked down and they make a choice on their end to accept it. and you can choose whether it auto renews or not after that period expires. And if you do set it to auto renew, that just means if you're renting out a spot for 2,000 gold per week, every week 2,000 gold goes out of the renter's either vendor inventory or bank box and into your bank box or into your vendor account. So it's a very nice system for people like me who have a place where a shop could be run, but they don't have the time or inclination to run a shop, to just make some passive income selling out spots.
Yeah. Well, we were trying to renovate our Andaria Moongate shop. And I guess if you don't cancel the contract right, maybe a couple days before it expires, you're locked into the next time frame. So, and we were doing 30-day contracts. So I think we had one player go AFK, couldn't get him to pull down his vendor, and then we were stuck with that vendor for a whole another 30 days. And then it happened again. Another player went AFK, and then we couldn't pull his contract, and then we had another 30 days. And yeah, it's kind of why that we just now put a brand new house right at the Andaria Moongate. Actually looks really nice. It's a bigger house with 20 vendors, and we've been decorating it last week. I think we're starting to put brand new vendors up here in a day or two.
Excellent.
But, yeah, there's some weird mechanics there with that system that tripped us up, but it is cool for sure. Cause I was walking down South Pavilia, and the guy was, you could just easily click it, purchase one, then load your shop up, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you raised the problem with that mechanic. We've had a lot of guild members have that same issue. So maybe there's a good reason that mechanic is in place, so we're not aware of it, or maybe that's something that they could improve. That has been a sticky point. But yeah, beyond that, it's a fantastic system. It really increases market efficiency. A lot of people are just renting out to complete strangers, just whoever will pay the highest amount. And I think that's very efficient. That shop owner must really be doing some good business to want to pay that amount.
Yeah. Are you doing any kind of, I guess your shop in particular or not, but is anyone in your guild doing, are you controlling what their upper limits they can sell at? Don't list it above these crafters, or make sure stuff's below this guy?
No, we try to not have people competing within the same location if we can avoid it. So even if there was a very big building, we wouldn't want to have two tailors and two tinkers competing against each other within that same building. We'd let people just put in plant vendors and whatever rares or whatever else they want to sell aspect stuff once the crafts are covered. But then once the crafts are covered, people can charge whatever they want. And like I said, we encourage high prices. We don't say how high, but see how high you can go.
Right. I guess creep it up, and then if it moves, list it higher.
Right. And the reason for this is not just because we're very stupid or very greedy. It's because you can only restock that thing so often, and your materials and your time cost you something. So you can either have an unstocked vendor that's not profiting at all at low prices, or have a vendor that remains stocked at the interval you're able to restock it at the higher prices, which is a win-win. Now you don't have to do as much of this tedious work to restock it, and your margins are much better. So it's worth your time.
So I don't even know what the profit is like with this. So let's say you've got a blacksmith, and you keep it stocked. Every night you come in and you restock it with your sets of gear and stuff like that. What are your profit margins like? Like, how much are you making a week?
I do not have a blacksmith, but I do know that blacksmith, tailor, and probably tinker are all very profitable right now relative to the other crafts. And I also see revenue of hundreds of thousands of gold passing through blacksmith vendors there at Terran Moongate. So that guy is getting rich off of that spot, blacksmith entree. But yeah, we'd have to ask that group exactly what their percent is, and they would probably just lie to us.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And then it probably goes into is he buying his supplies? Is he getting himself? Or
yeah, that makes a huge difference. If you've got that vertical integration going and you are your own supply chain, you can win on both ends by just doing the whole thing yourself. Although I think a lot of our crafters do not do any harvesting at all. Somehow they don't find crafting to be intolerably boring, but the harvesting part, it does seem too tedious and just filling out captchas. So a lot of our crafters don't harvest, and we could really use new players who want to have an easy way to learn their way around the map and get some gold to pick up mining and help us out, or any of the, lumberjacking, any of it.
Yeah, I just found out today you can hit 100 GM pretty quick mining. I mean, it's not fast. It's definitely a grind, about 20, 30 hours, something like that to hit 100. But then anything past that has to be on a colored ore, or this would be the same with wood or I guess skinning too even. So you're going to start to need resource maps just to get enough of those resources to get skill gain on. Like one guy was telling me he did 20 or 30K ingots to GM or something like that, or to GM ore, and then he's spent 131K ingots to get it to 107 or something like that.
Wow.
So just to get to those high-end materials that you put in, like a Velarite, or I'm probably saying these names wrong, Averite.
Completely wrong.
Yeah. It takes,
yeah. But yeah,
it takes
a
lot of work to get there.
It teaches people the systems as they're gaining the skill. Maybe that's a good idea, as long as they have to eventually learn the systems, because so much is custom. I didn't know anything about these lumber maps and skinning maps, all of that. I just stocked it up and only recently started paying any attention to it. So had I needed to look at that back in the day while training skills, that might not have been so bad. Yeah,
hopefully I'm not just spreading misinformation, because I have no crafter and no gatherer at all. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I have my PVM guy has inscription and forensic evaluation on him, so I consider him both a gatherer and a crafter. That's the extent of it for me too. So unfortunately, if you were hoping I was a crafting expert, I know almost nothing about the entire game.
So your focus is just purely on the economy side of it?
Yeah, I just enjoy playing solo mostly, and wanted to create a little casual community of people who were laid back. And so that's how I got involved with this Amyr project. And the guys are laid back. They don't have any of the, so-and-so guild stole my boss or res killed me or any of that stuff to worry about. They're hanging out in their houses and in town for the most part. And when people are out in the dungeons, if they've been sticking mostly to crafting, these guys are getting more of a thrill out of it than we ever possibly could, again, because it's still so fresh. So yeah, it's a fun group to hang out with.
Yeah, I tell you, it's hard to maintain Ultima Online and casual. It's everything about the game just it either wants more time out of you than you can give it, or when you do give time in it, it can get so serious. Well, because you lose everything, and then you can go get your revenge, or it's just you got to kind of work to get to stick it solo or play nice. So it's something cool. You've fostered a community that's pretty laid back.
Yeah, it is thrilling. It's thrilling that you can lose all of your great stuff every time you die, and people could sneak up and steal it from you. They can kill you and take it. And you may or may not have the means to get revenge on them at that time. But it's important to be able to die well, especially for new players, and to just enjoy the whole experience of it as much as possible, because you can't win this game. So if you manage to never die in PvP and you killed the Omniboss 1,000 times or whatever, you still haven't won. It never ends. So you just got to enjoy every moment of it as much as you can. Talk to the Reds after they kill you. Ask for them to resurrect you, and they'll probably talk to you and give you some of your stuff back, or come back and kill them if you can. Yeah,
change characters, come back on your Red. That's one frustrating thing here is your builds can get so skewed to Glass Cannon that you can't really fight back. So you gotta. But there's definitely a lot of emergent gameplay that happens just throughout the whole shard.
Yeah, there's a little bit of crossover, but if you're good at PvP, you're not good at PVM and vice versa.
Yeah, I'm not good at PvP. Although I did finish my first PvP guy last week, and then today I set up my macros. So maybe I won't be so bad in a couple weeks. We'll see.
Oh, nice. I actually haven't even finished training the Kvothe character skills yet. I've got him at 720 skill cap, so Need to finish training that out. I'm going to try to make him some kind of guy who's bad at both PVM and PvP and can just go gray in dungeons and wander around and see what happens.
We've had a lot of success with artisan builds. About 120 blacksmith, and then you load up PVM skills with it, and you put them in an artisan suit, and those builds are really powerful if you're in a group, because they give a lot of really nice buffs to all your other players.
Yeah, that's a common pastime for our members when they are PVMing. It's to get with a couple really solid PVMers who have a high tier aspect thing going on, and they'll just tag along and shoot some crossbow bolts or whatever to level up their artisan for their crafter characters. So it is cool to see the kind of damage that can do. Actually, it's not bad.
Yeah, I think the artisan suit is a part of the aspect that uses the crafting bonuses to kind of just double into PVM, and you can take these repair kits and repair other players, and then once you give that to them, it gives them a nice buff, and then you put that across the group of 10 guys or 5 guys, whatever it happens to be, and it could be a nice little like a buff character and functional as from the PVM side of the game. And with the echo system, you can actually echo your guy, so load him up with crafting and gathering, and then echo him, and then go get your sword or mace and tactics and take that same crafter out into the world and see Outlands that way.
Yeah, and a few of the craft skills you might even choose to keep. Blacksmithy or tailoring or something for fun. They have PVM buffs on them. So
yeah, exactly,
even if you're not at the echo yet, there's a lot of flexibility there to benefit from that artisan aspect, both in PVM and in crafting. The key thing there, I don't know if we mentioned, is that it increases your chance of creating an exceptional item, a mastercrafted item. So yeah, that's very worthwhile.
The only thing I got to tell new players is that they don't know all the new mechanics, so they see that mining and lumberjacking gives a bonus to PVM, and so they just go start lumberjacking and mining, and then you have to tell them that hey, you could have that same bonus in 1 hour with tracking. So if you don't really want to mine, go tracking or camping, or if you do like gathering, maybe do forensics, or you're in the dungeon. That just takes a little new player education.
Maybe those harvesting skills could use a little bit of a PVM buff for the really new players to UO, who want to dabble in a bit of everything, and they understand that the tailoring is helping their armor class or whatever. It does, but it would be nice if it was a little bit stronger. I did nothing but chopping trees with Hero at launch, and so I had built up some decent lumberjacks, but it was not a useful skill, and I wasn't interested in gathering wood, so I just never played those characters again.
Yeah, we had Akasha on the podcast, and their launch plan is ridiculous, but it worked, which is cool. Were you part of that plan at all, or did you just participate?
Yeah, I did the practice runs with them on beta, and we went ahead and got a bunch of great houses on launch day, including that Terran Moongate Amyr shop that I'm running. That was one of the ones placed during the Hero launch.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't know, they basically just all ran lumberjackers, and I think you made bows and sold them, and then used that gold to buy most of the first houses on the shard.
Yeah, and Akasha also dipped into some stuff that would give him some skill gains so that we could craft the first boat and get out to take over an island. So, yeah, he and I have played, 15 years ago or so, and then again recently on Outlands. So that was a lot of fun. That was probably my favorite launch of any server launch I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, I love those stories. Just the reconnecting with old friends. I'm glad Outlands is here to give players, I guess, his reconnections, or meet old friends, hang out with them, or form new friends. Which I know I've definitely done.
Yeah, you seem to be part of a really good community, Beer Brothers.
Yeah. And it's definitely grown, and you lose players, you gain players, but it's been a lot of fun. The podcast is a great way to meet people outside of my small circle in game too.
Yeah, you've had quite a wide variety on so far. So as far as I can tell, I'm like the most boring guest that gets all the economics questions and all the finance questions and so on. So
well, every week can't be Akasha or a chill. It can't be.
Why can't we? What do I have to do? Okay.
I definitely want to cover the entire game and all parts of the community. And so this is definitely a hole in the show. So, well, we haven't talked a lot about the economy, maybe a little bit. What are some of the interesting things about UO and Outlands in particular with its economy?
So segueing straight into those boring questions I was referring to.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What's unique about the Outlands economy? It's very intricate. There's a lot of interlocking pieces, and it seems like Odin and Luthien are going in a direction where they're sort of simplifying their levers of control if they want to sink out some gold or get people to spend off some Kvothe coins or whatever. They've kept it quite balanced, and hopefully that doesn't require too much on their end, that it will just remain balanced on autopilot. But it's very rich. The crafts are needed. Ever since the change to aspect mastery, where your suit is no longer blessed, so when you die, your armor stays on your corpse and people can take it, even if you're using aspect. That means that there's a huge demand right now for crafted leather and blacksmith, armor, weapons, all of that. So we're very interdependent. We're actually depending a lot on player crafters now, more so than UO usually does. Usually you can just get an invulnerability halberd, and that's all you need.
Yeah, and the economy can swing a little bit with mechanics. When they brought in the ecosystem, that wreaked havoc across all sorts of items, arcane scrolls and a bunch of stuff, MCDs, all that stuff shot up. Actually, MCD probably went up because of the chain system. I think MCDs were down at like 20K, 23K, and now they're pushing 35K.
And in the meantime, they've gone up to 100K or something for 10 minutes. Yeah, the price was all over the place after those changes were put in. That might have been interlocking things a little bit too much, but I assume they were just trying to create some item sinks as well so that they could balance out how many of these items to take out of the game. But I'm glad they ended up revising that when they saw the effect. Yeah,
there's really not a whole lot of gold sinks. There's not really like your guild doesn't sink gold into anything to upgrade it. There's usually a pretty big gold sink in a game that Outlands doesn't have. But the recent addition would just be the casino stuff and the raffle tickets. And I'm assuming that's pulling out a tremendous amount of gold.
Yeah, so I haven't looked at that stuff very closely, but what's in the game currently has negative expected value to play, right? Like you'll lose money if you play it?
Yeah, I don't think it was when it first launched, which is why it got pulled down for a little while and then brought back and then pulled down for a couple of small tweaks. But I think when it first came out, you could just macro it and get a small gain over time. Yeah, now it's you can look at the rankings and the net winnings aren't that impressive.
Yeah, before that fix, I saw people were spending a lot of time on there, and I just assumed they were dumb. I didn't realize there was this thing going on where you could get free money and you could actually beat the house. But if it's now the case that you can't beat the house on average, everybody stay away from that. Don't play the lottery. But they're working on poker, right? So let's all sit down and play some poker together. That'll be fun.
Yeah, they are working on poker, which that'll be cool. I think the game probably does need more gold sinks. I don't know. Have you noticed inflation anywhere else or a slow creep in it?
Yeah. There's certainly since launch, things are selling for way more gold as the supply of gold increases and the capacity to increase the supply of gold increases when people have their high level characters that can farm tons of gold. It means they can come up with gold if they need to, and prices start going up on things. In terms of gold, now, I think Provalia coins are actually a superior currency, personally. They're always pegged to the US dollar, so I see a little bit more stability on that side of things, but unfortunately, most people do not accept Provalia coins the way they accept gold. I think they should, but maybe that'll be something that happens longer term.
Yeah, it's probably just that the only thing you can get with them is cosmetic. There's not a lot of game-breaking stuff you can go buy with it, which is good. I think it's by design, so that they don't turn their game pay to win. But that also makes those things more valuable because people really do want them. Whereas if they're just for a piece of cloak or a piece of furniture, then the desire to have those coins may not be as high. I think what the shop does have the tomes That's a really nice in-character benefit. So maybe over time they'll have more things introduced there that will draw player interest. And it did just spike recently when he put brand new hues in the market. So perhaps they were still because the Parelia shop hadn't changed in like 2 or 3 months.
Right. Yeah. If you, it makes sense to always diversify your game wealth. So if you find that you've got millions upon millions of gold or whatever to you seems like a high amount, you might diversify into various things. And Privalia coins is like the gold US dollar. That's a US dollar in the game. So not a bad hedge against inflation compared to gold. If you find yourself racking up a lot of wealth, thinking about what you store in the bank that you don't need at any given time, I would say Privalia coins probably will retain their value better than gold. And you can trade them for things. People almost accept it as much as they accept gold.
The only thing more stable that seems like it's more stable would be skill orbs. I think skill orbs were very briefly under 30K, and they very quickly were 35K for many, many months, and now they've been 45K for weeks and weeks and weeks. It doesn't seem to fluctuate all that much. I think they're pretty rare, and everyone needs it for the 720 builds. But that can always be manipulated by, Luthus puts in some new equation in to make them drop more than they would tank. So you have that going against it, I guess, as a currency. Yeah,
more farming could occur or less, and that will control how many skill orbs are brought into the system. Whereas with Privalia coins, I think it's just donations, right? So dollars being brought into the system, which is probably a little less sensitive than farming, but who knows? Yeah, maybe people would suddenly just start throwing cash at the game and creating Privalia coins. That would be a win-win too.
Yeah. What's another weird item that's skyrocketed recently? Command. All the command stuff is crazy. Like a command core is 80 up to 100K.
Yeah. And an extract's like 60 or 70.
Yeah. So what that tells you there, that's an interesting thing. That's your tamers are now high enough tier aspect that they need cores because they're no longer building the suits. They're trying to get to tier 8, tier 10, and they need a lot of cores versus extracts. So it's the cores that are rare. More, at least the supply isn't there to meet demand.
It's interesting.
A command core is 80K to 100K, and a poison core is 3K. That's a tremendous price difference for essentially the same item.
Well, poison cores and extracts, I would think, would be dropping at the same kind of rates as command cores and extracts, and you're doing the same thing with them. So, yeah, I guess it is just that those two curves start to diverge in the higher tiers, and there's a huge demand for it on the taming side. It's interesting, and skill orbs are a great point. I think long term, every major character that any player has in the game, they're going to want to bring to 720 long term. Right now, it's not really viable, but people will have several 720 players if they don't already.
Yeah, I think mine is 707. Most people in my guild have one character that's either there or very close. I don't farm as much as a lot of guys that I play with, but yeah, I don't know. I guess what you said to start this conversation is probably pretty apt. Diversify, have gold, have prev coins. Maybe don't dump all of your items. Yeah, real estate, which is another market here that is hard. It's hard to tell what it really should go for, because when you go through go through real estate, it's all over the place. And I don't know what's worth what really. It's really hard to pin down the value of stuff.
Sounds like they could use more people going in flipping places for profit. If it's that hard to find out, then the people who put a little bit of work in and come up with their own estimates probably can find a few really good deals here and there and double or triple their money on that purchase pretty quickly.
Yeah, if you're willing to put in the work to scout, win IDOCs, but purchase it and then try to flip it and sell it, which can be, you market it as, I'm selling you a 50K house, but it secures, a 15 secure house or whatever that may be. You gotta market it right and then find someone to buy it and whatever they're willing to pay. But it can be tricky when you're trying to do a trade with a buddy. You know, maybe you're trying to trade it for money, but you don't know. Yeah, I spent $50K in the house, but what's the slot actually worth? 150, 400K? I don't even know.
It's changing, but the land is not expanding around the major points of interest that we currently have. So it is a scarce commodity. So if you can grab some decent plot and maybe not worry about flipping it, just hold on to it. It's probably a good store value, again, to have along with Privalia coins and gold and all the rest.
Well, it doesn't sound like new land is coming in the game anytime soon. Well, that's not true. There's lots of new stuff and new land coming in, but none of it will have real estate. At least that's what Owen has made kind of clear. I mean, it could come down the road. I mean, maybe the 1-year anniversary comes with like a land expansion and territory. But he's even said the next chunk of land he adds won't add new territory or new housing. So I think they're pretty dedicated to keeping the housing where it is now and the values where they are now and the player investment at least where it is now for the foreseeable future. So
yeah, even if the population doubled, you might want to just keep it the way it is, because fine, guild houses will be more valuable, that you can share your house with your friends or with your guild, and people can play out of their bank box. Sometimes I prefer to, if I'm playing some free shard casually, not to worry about refreshing houses, just play right out of the bank box. Now here we've got storage shelves and all kinds of luxuries that you might want a house for, but there's a lot of room.
Do you know about the storage locker?
Oh, right, yeah.
Half the cost goes in your bank. It almost could be nicer to live out of a locker in a bank, other than having to deal with thieves, I guess, but you can mitigate some of that risk too.
Oh, I had read some of the numbers on the locker, but I don't have one. I did not realize that that's the major distinction. You can use it out of the bank?
Yeah, I can use it right out of the bank. I think, or in a chest, I think too. I don't have one, but you can for sure use it out of the bank, and it works just like a storage shelf.
Oh, well, there you go. If you run out of housing, just put the bank on steroids, and it's a good playing experience. You can pick up that bank at any town.
Yeah, well, they've proven they're going to update and change things. So maybe they could, if housing really did get that limited with the growing player base, they could put in where you rent rooms out, that kind of stuff.
Oh, inside the town or from another player's house?
Like a player's house, like a big mansion, but you rent out your rooms.
That would be great. I haven't seen many of the big mansions placed anywhere, the ones that are 30 by 30 tiles or larger. Have you seen those?
That's because you didn't place your fucking house right next to Stormy like I did.
Oh, do you have several 30 by 30s?
No, he put the biggest house down right before he took a break from the game. Yeah, it's like a 30, I think it's 31 by 31 or so. It's one of the bigger houses in the game. And so I stare at the thing all day from my, 200K house. It's right there next to me. It's
good. I mean, you don't want to be the most expensive house in the neighborhood. It's not good. It's risky, right? So it's good that your neighbor is ridiculously amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the things people accomplish in this game are pretty wild.
Yeah, it's good. But yeah, renting out places from another player is a really good idea for big places like that, to the extent they exist. Or in town would be a lot of fun. Pay a lot of money and rent a tiny little room or a tiny little row house or something in one of the major towns.
Yeah, see, that's where I got this idea from, was you said row house. That made me think of Richard Garrett's other game. Escaping my head right now, but they put in this mechanic where you could rent out like a hotel.
Recent one, Shroud of the Avatar or something?
Yeah, that's the one.
I was so excited when I heard that was going to be a thing, and then the more I learned about it, the farther I got away from it, so I never ended up playing it. Did you try it?
Yeah, it's fun. It's got some major issues, but all of the stuff that makes UO great is in there somewhere, so it can definitely be enjoyable for time. Just don't get sucked down the cash shop.
It's no Outlands,
there
is what you're saying.
Yeah. Richard Garrett still, he made UO, and you could definitely see his thumbprint or fingerprints all over that game. So,
oh man, yeah, all those original developers were geniuses. The kind of systems they put in place they were just doing breakthrough after breakthrough without even realizing how revolutionary it was. because they were just having fun building it out. It's amazing what they put together. This world that's made, like the animals are made of meat and feathers and leather and everything. Back in the 90s, the 1990s is when they launched this thing. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, it's definitely cool. Okay, let's move into community questions. I think we got a couple here. Let's see here. From Shadowstone, what is Amyr's outlook on the future of harvesting? It seems very few people seem to harvest resources anymore because farming is so much more lucrative.
Yeah, there are a lot of harvesters out there, but it's hard to compete with the people who have very advanced scripts. So the way I can't speak for the Amyr or what the Cyrdae think is best about this, but I think that it's pretty good as it is. You cannot eliminate people from scripting ever. So the fact that there is this Captcha system and rigid rules surrounding that, I think is about as good as you can get. And the fact of the matter is just going to be that whoever finds it fun to write scripts or to adapt scripts and run them, those are going to be your major harvesters. And if they're having fun with that, they're an important part of the community and the economy. And we need harvesters right now in our guild. So if there's harvesters listening that want long-term purchasers of your resources, we can cover you on that. Because, yeah, a lot of our guys they're not into scripting that much, or they could do it that way, but they'd rather play some other way.
Yeah, so I think you kind of ran. You had a second question, a follow-up question that I think you tackled pretty well there. I think this question, it's almost more about you can make so much more gold just farming, like going in a dungeon and making gold that way, that the incentive to get out there mining isn't quite there. Like maybe it needs to be to support the crafting Outlands needs. So I don't know if there's anything.
I guess you could drop dungeon loot, but I'm not sure. I really don't think that would make that big of a difference. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know what mechanic you put in to make harvesting more meaningful to the or more appealing to players.
It is what it is. There's a lot of demand for resources right now, thanks to this aspect system changes where people need a lot of armor and weapons right now. So, yeah, I don't think that it's out of balance necessarily with PVM loot, that reducing PVM loot, for example, would be a solution. I think it just is what it is. That's the playstyle. Some people, maybe they're playing something else or they're watching a movie on the other screen, and it is attended and they can say hello to you if you say hi to them in the game, but they're doing something else. And that's what I imagine these harvesters must be doing. Or they've got, 3 monitors running and it's extremely efficient and they're sitting there sweating, like people who play multiple poker tables at a time online. Maybe that's what that play style looks like. I'm not really sure, but whatever it is, that's what it is. So I don't think we can help those guys out very much. They're harvesters. Sorry, guys.
I've got years of mining in EVE Online, in nullsec with the full setup and multiple clients going. So I've been there. I can't do that anymore, but I did that because I had little children. So I could AFK a little more. I could do it while like in the morning or during the day, and it was a little more not as hands-on, but I could still consider myself gaming. But in UO, you gotta move. Although I guess with a proper macro that recalls around, maybe not so much, but
yeah, I've seen a trick where you have the script drop something in front of you, and then depending on whether it successfully fell on the ground or not, whether you can step on that tile, and so it can do some advanced pathfinding for you. These scripters are having a good time, but like the reason that you had when you were doing all that mining, people have reasons that they're playing that way, and I could see how it could be a lot of fun. It's one of many different games that people are playing when they play Ultima Online.
Yeah, which I don't want to remove. I think it's cool that, and this may fix it too. The more demand the crafters have, the more the prices go up, and the more players that will want to tackle harvesting to make that gold. But especially maybe a newer player, that it's something easy to get in and make your first 50K for your house or whatever it may be.
Great for a new player, or even a player who's new to video games in general. maybe a very young person or a very old person who hasn't played a lot of games like this and they don't want anything very technical, it's something where they can run around and explore this beautiful map and find seeds and rare colored resources that are quite valuable. It's a very legitimate way of getting started in the game, whether or not you're a veteran. But yeah, are you going to stick with it for the long term? Probably only if you're really into the scripting playstyle.
All right, so the next one's a good one. It cracks me up too. It's from BXB Milk, streamer. A lot of times you see him out there stealing people and then killing them.
Nice.
Ask Amyr, what makes them think they can creep into Cambria and Moongate territory? Are they ready to compete with the top vendors on the server? Sounds
like he must run some shoddy vendors out there and he's hoping for some free advertising. I do like what you said about his playstyle though. That sounds fun. So yeah, I'll look for him around Cambria Moongate. That sounds fun.
Yeah, and I think we covered this a little bit earlier. You know, you guys are expanding territory and branding yourselves, and you know your work will say or speak for itself, I guess.
And we will kill anyone who causes problems. Yeah, that's a war declaration to every guild on the Shard. No, actually, if we declared war on another guild, our people would flip. But it sounds like they've got some changes in the pipeline where guilds naturally sort of PvP with the world through the guild system. So maybe we will turn on some PvP, actually.
Yeah, I think you can actually you can opt into that system, and then players can also opt in. So you can actually do it with your guild, but then the player still has a choice to either to join the guild in that endeavor or pass, you know.
Yeah, I hope the players opted out by default. I remember when that was an option with the factions, some people would find themselves flagged for combat and they didn't know how that happened. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe it was defaulted wrong or whatever.
There were lots of dead Beard Brothers in Prevelia when I signed us up for the Order faction.
With that unblessed house deed on them.
Yeah, people were yelling at me. The last question from Jack Churchill. Does the market feel strong for crafted items, or is the cost investment too great to hit 120 to keep it profitable versus selling the raw materials?
Yeah, it's constantly changing, but overall, I think the market is thriving. I mentioned earlier a few trades that are especially profitable right now: tailoring and blacksmithing, and tinkering also to a large extent. But that's constantly in flux. So if someone's considering whether they should take a skill to 120 or not, I would look at your very short-term understanding of the market and try to do a back-of-the-envelope calculation as to whether it's worth it right now. In the long run, you'll always be glad that you have it, but there's only a few of them that pay very well right now.
Yeah, and the last question that I have is maybe a weird one, and I don't know if you have the knowledge.
I don't take weird questions.
Yeah, it's so the gear in UO does not deteriorate. Well, it does, but you can repair it back up. As far as the need of crafters to replace that gear.
I lost a supremely potent spellbook because I was farming too much and didn't realize I had not repaired it in a while. But yes, go on.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that a bigger issue with crafters and the economy here? Do we need a stricter system to where items actually get destroyed beyond just PvP? Because PvP won't remove all the items. So there's two ways to tackle this problem. One, you remove items just over time, which UO has, although Outlands counteracted it by always being able to repair it. And two, you lose them on death, which Outlands kind of has, but it can go to the other player. So I think you can put in like some of the loot gets destroyed. So let's say you die and you have full suit of plate armor, but only your helmet, chest, and legs drop, and your gloves and the neck piece, get destroyed. Basically, like the same thing we talked earlier about economy and gold sinks and items. Like, is there a need for crafted gear to leave so that crafters are more important in the game?
I think it's okay. I think once in a while a player will die in a dungeon or something and just let their body turn to bones and turn to dust, and then all those items are lost. So that's one way things occasionally disappear. Also, murderers are often very picky about what they loot, so they might leave your helmet and your shield, but take, your leggings and your sleeves or something like that. And so everybody ends up with these incomplete sets of armor. And armor is sold in sets. So usually you wouldn't have, if you're going around killing everybody, then yeah, you've got an unlimited supply of armor. But other than that, any other player just has to occasionally buy a full set if they want to be properly geared up. So I think the way that things get mixed up, it's enough. The stuff exists. Somebody created it, so it doesn't need to too quickly deteriorate. That would be much more annoying, I think, for people if their shield was constantly disappearing in the middle of battle.
Yeah. I'm not saying that either of those solutions to my fake problem are
any
the
ideas?
Ideal way to do it. They're just ways that they can be done. I don't know that it is a problem. That's kind of what I'm asking. Do you think? It sounds like you.
Well, do you have any ideas as to what you might do with it? Well, you can recycle stuff. People do that.
Yeah. Other than what I described, I guess it's if you think it's a problem that gear stays in the game too long.
Oh no. Personally, I do not. It's an interesting thing to look at, though. I haven't really looked at that very closely. But stuff sells all the time. People want full suits of the thing that gets them to a certain armor rating or whatever, or that looks a certain way. They're not going to wear, an iron, a chainmail tunic, and a Valorite plate mail legs or whatever and go out looking like a clown. So it gets mixed up enough, I think.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're on the side that the current item sync is just fine and it doesn't need tweaking. I've heard the opposite from players, but I don't know if they're as in tune with what's happening and what crafters are making currently. So
yeah, crafters are selling stuff fine. So there may be other ways in which it's inconvenient for items to persist in the game for too long, but that's just how all the items are work in UO for the most part. I haven't really heard of a sync for crafted items. It's kind of sad if someone master crafted this item out of some rare material and then they just throw it down a well somewhere to make a wish. But that we would welcome that. Then we would sell even more.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. All right, man. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. We covered some good ground here for topics that don't get a lot of coverage, but I think it's a huge part of Outlands and of course Ultima Online. So thanks a lot for coming on here, man.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
You got anything you want to toss out there or
nothing. The whole thing was a big advertisement, so I'll leave people alone at this point.
Go to Terran Moongate, shop Amyr, and then go to Andari Moongate and shop Beard Brothers. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. See y'all in
just the first part.
Yeah. Go to our website, InsideOutlands.com. I'll have a link to our Discord. I'll probably put in the Amyr Discord too if they want it there. Join our Discord, listen live, leave us and our guest feedback. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you.